Make every night a wonderful journey, no matter where you are. Good night, sweet dreams. The first story, The Puddle, Downpour. The rain came down on the first day in October. It gave no warning of its approach. Following one of hottest days on record, the rain lasted 5 days with no let-up, and many were forced out of their homes due to rising water levels. Living in a small village didn't help either. The green hills had become slippery death traps, and old renovated barns showing signs of the age their owners had fought so hard to conceal began to crumble. For most people in the village, it was the rain which concerned them. The fact it lasted almost a whole week, unrelenting, was certainly odd, and many local news crews had been called to report on it. But for me, the real bad stuff happened after the rain had stopped and the sun took back its place overlooking the world below. I was the one who found the puddle, but I want no credit for the find. If I had the chance again, I would have turned a blind eye and kept on driving. It was in the middle of a back road seldom used by people other than farmers or out-of-towners. I used it for this exact reason. I liked peace and quiet. When I noticed the puddle, I pulled my car over to the dirt track leading up through the woods and back into the village and killed the engine. Immediately the puddle looked wrong somehow, as though it wasn't meant to be here. Curiously, I approached and stood over it, looking down at myself in its rippling reflection. The sun had been out for 3 weeks since the downpour, yet this puddle seemed unaffected. It was large, perfectly rounded, and a bluish-green tint swirling around inside it. I poked it with a twig and, kid you not, could have sworn that damp puddle pulled back in surprise of being touched. It tried again, and got the same response. Only this time the color of the puddle darkened to an oil black and then back to bluish-green again. I know I should have left, but I was intrigued. One last poke. I decided, then I'd leave it be. How foolish the human mind can be. The puddle, if you could call such a thing that, not only pulled back when I jabbed it a 3rd time, but actually reared up like a cobra poised to strike. It came down fast, and if I hadn't been as agile as I was, it would have engulfed me. Then it crashed down onto the road, making no splash or spraying any water, and settled back down into a gentle ripple again. My heart was pounding. I needed to close the road before a car. The Ford was coming fast, lights flashing and music blaring. I tried to stop the driver, but he seemed unaware I was even standing there in the road. I dived to the side as the car whipped past me and over the large, puddle-like thing, taking up the entire path ahead. For a moment the force looked to have cleared the puddle with ease. Then I saw what was really happening, and like an unfolding dream I watched it in silent, fascinated horror. The Ford hits the puddle going easily 80, and at first it looks to have made it over without difficulty. The front tires ease over the bluish mass, but the back to freeze. Suddenly halted. The car lurches forward, trying to wrench away, and out of its predicament, but it's stuck fast. The driver opens his window and looks out, at first merely pissed that he struck, and then his jaw drops and a look of terror fills his tanned face. The next moment the Ford is sliding slowly downwards into the puddle, further and further, until it's upright like a metal tombstone, and the diver tries to flee but he can't. The puddle is pushing against the doors. He screams for help and I run forward, stumbling, regaining myself. Now the car is almost gone, swallowed by the puddle. No, not a fucking puddle. And then the driver is sucked down inside, too, and his screams are no more, and the thing closes itself up as the taillights of the Ford flicker and die as it slips away into the thing's watery body. I ran. I couldn't have saved that man anyway, not a chance. I ran until my legs ached, and my head pounded and my eyes were watering. Upon reaching the village, I grabbed the first passerby I could find to tell him what was happening. "It's like a fucking puddle," I screamed. "I know," the man replied, and I gaped at him. "You know." I almost screamed. "How?" The man waved a hand towards the village. "Look around," he said. "They're everywhere." And he was right. Large, bulbous puddles lining every street, corner and road. Some colour that sick oily black and others the shade of bluish green. Hundreds of them now, spawning from one another like malignant tumours. The rain hadn't been just a downpour, it had been a curtain. Those 5 days had allowed these things to come down, to land in Spround, and now we were trucked slap bang in the middle of them. The second story. The Grey Bride Lady. The Grey Bride Lady. I've been a fan of a lot of creepy pasta stories and such. I really thought to myself lots of times, while I've been reading them, that I want like a horror-based type of experience to happen to me, due to the fact that I'm doing nothing but being here at home, with nothing else better to do as I wait to move out of my hometown for college, which will be in a month. I was watching some scary video game walkthrough, with commentary, as it's hilarious to watch the player panic and scream as something scary happens, and I jump every time something randomly pops out of nowhere. After watching a good enough of horror stuff, I went to bed, as I really don't get nightmares at all, until last night. I had some uncomfortable dream which was a blur to me. I woke up for hours later, suffocating, gasping for air. While nothing is causing my lack of air, here comes to what is so bizarre than can ever happen to me, as I lay there on my head, thinking what kind of dream I just had. My head was pounding like crazy, like never before. It felt like my skull is cracking as my brain was being stabbed by a metal object repeatedly, stabbing my right side of my brain. I got up, then I walked to the kitchen to take some migraine medicine. The house cat was following me, like he always does, but he doesn't follow a person more than 10 minutes. So I can obviously tell the cat was super worried about me. My stomach started growling at me, which is weird, because I usually eat till noontime, and my stomach doesn't get hungry till then. Man, my head is killing me. It's kinda like a hangover, but worse, which is strange, because I haven't drank anything for a year by now, as I was hunting down for something simple to make for me to eat. I then noticed something very odd. The house cat next to me kept looking behind me like something is there, and he kept staring constantly without even blinking. I really didn't think anything was behind me, but I just kept looking in the fridge. I eventually felt very dizzy. I was trying to walk towards my room, and it was hard to walk, because my body wanted to collapse the further I walked, and tears came running down my face. The house was following as I eventually reached my bed. Then I just threw myself down, with infinite tears running down my face. As I lay there, I had a random flashback to my nightmare that I couldn't remember. It was a glance of a bride lady covered in blood. I couldn't make out the rest, but that gave me chills. Then the tears finally stopped. My eyes got wider as I gave the biggest smile I could never do, as it started to hurt. I was not in control of my body, as something possesses me. I can hear her angered tone of voice whispering inside my head. The voice sounded determined. I couldn't explain it, but it was terrifying. She made me slide down the bed as she was making my head move very creepily, like somebody broke my neck or something. She softly giggles in a deep monotone, which makes it come out of my mouth. She gets up like some broken machine, then stops right in front of my mirror by the dresser. That's where I saw her. She looked very disturbing. She has bloodshot covered eyes, with a dark, red-blooded tears, a grey skin tone, wearing a torn-up bloody dress, with the blood looking fresh, an unforgettable freaky smile, with blackened gums that looked rotten, and raven black yarn-like hair. She started laughing hysterically loud as she walks towards the kitchen. I tried to fight back, but she was too strong while I was struggling. She opened the drawer where the cooking knives were at, and she grabbed the biggest knife there was. Then she put it on my neck, ready to slice it. My reflexes reacted, and I gained control. As I fought trying to drag her out of my body, the knife fell as I was grabbing her to throw her out of my body. It was a hard fight, but I eventually got her out. I fell on my knees, terrified of what the hell just happened. I panicked, so I rushed to my room to grab my phone so I can ask for backup. I text my best friend, who is a psychic that knows more paranormal crap than I do. I described the evil spirit to her, and I waited for a reply. She's still in high school, and I graduated last year. I got the text message as my phone startled me. My eyes widened, as she knew who the lady was. My friend texted me that her name was the Grey Lady. I didn't know who she was, so I searched up some quick information about her. She's some type of ghost story. I didn't reread the info about her due to my eyes burning from waking up so early at 5:40 a.m. Whoever this lady is, I can't get the horrid image out of my head and that creepy laugh. I'm terrified of weddings now. If anyone wants me to go to a wedding, I will have to decline, as I will think the bride is the Grey Lady. Her laugh still haunts me. The third story. So, I'm a cartoonist. You walk through the crisp fall air, listening to the fallen leaves crunch beneath your footsteps on your way to school. It is only a short walk through a quaint suburban neighborhood to reach your destination, where you go every day to learn just like any other kid. On the other side of the street, you see 3 of your classmates talking to each other about several drawings. You hear the blonde one saying something about gay sex. You ignore them and keep walking. Soon, you pass 2 more classmates, a boy and a girl. You can't remember the boy's name. It was something silly, and something he had made up himself. Conveniently, he says it right as you walk by. My name's Tenko, he exclaims to no one. You ignore him. 2. It's nothing unusual. You arrive at school and sit down in your desk. Then you realize something. When did this classroom look so shitty? You think to yourself, running your hand along the edge of your desk. It feels rough and uneven now that you mention it. Every single edge of the classroom is jagged and imperfect. How did you not realize this sooner? The surfaces of the classroom are flat and featureless. No shadows or highlights. All the colors seem bland and boring, like they are only there to fill space. You focus your attention to the teacher at the front of the room. You swear her face looked completely different a minute ago, and her face from the back of the class, it looks deformed and incomplete. You can only make out 2 black dots where her eyes should be. Your classmates, when do they all look so similar to each other? You begin to notice more and more details. Objects disappear when you aren't looking. Someone's eyes stray in all different directions for a few seconds, and their hands became deformed and contorted without their owner noticing. Nothing looks real or even plausible anymore, you sit in the middle of a class with these freaks with changing bodies and dead, empty faces. What has changed? Or have things always been like this? The anxiety becomes too much. You are aware of the inconsistencies. Why does everyone speak like they are following a poorly written script? What would happen if you disobeyed the script? In a state of panic, you stand up and run to the door. As you grab the doorknob, it disintegrates into sketchy lines and falls apart as graphite on your fingers. The sketch spreads like a virus. The jagged corners of the walls turn into sketch lines, causing the flat, dull flames of color to erupt and melt onto the floor. You look back at the students. The colors fall off their faces like wax, leaving nothing but a grey sketch of what they once were. And then, smearing like wet charcoal, the classroom turns into a sticky grey paste. A smear left by a dirty eraser. You fall into white nothingness. After a few seconds, you land. Everything is white and blinding, like a fresh sheet of paper. And then he appears. Is a short, fat, balding man. He wears a beat-up brown fedora and a bright blue t-shirt. W, who are you? You stutter to him. So am a cartoonist. What? You shiver. What do you mean? What am I? What happened to my classroom and in my world? You're my character, he responds. I've got tons of them, and they've all got minds of their own. You hesitate. Are you God? This pleases him. Well, I suppose you could say that. I'm a professional. You start to get angry at this pompous man. You write a horrible cartoonist. You yell. Everything was so wrong. Everything fell apart. It was terrible. If that's the kind of world you create, then you're no artist. Just an amateur. He pauses. I didn't ask for a critique, he whispers. You feel a painful tingle in your leg. You look down to see it fracturing away into a sketch. Like every one of your peers, the collar on your hands falls off in clumps. Like grounded meat, your face starts to burn from the friction of an eraser, and before you can scream, your mouth is gone. Soon you're nothing but shavings at his feet. He looks down at your remains, taking a pencil from behind his ear. He says, let's try that again, and creates another character.